Hey folks, it's Ardwulf. Welcome to the Counter Clipping Show. Once again, I have forgotten to send out the social media post, so let me tap that button a bunch of times here. I got it all ready. I just was busy organizing the counters for tonight. So this is Counter Clipping Show number 60 for February 7th, 2022. I had a very aggravating day at work. We're not really going to talk about that, except that Nimrods, what can I say? Who decided I was telepathic and didn't need to know the things that I needed to know. So we're drinking, once again, Tamnavulin double cask until it's gone, and we will be clipping the Little Land until it's gone. And I think this is our third week clipping this thing. This is the last one of that. Can everybody see the stream? Apparently they can. So let me make sure everything's working here, since I have some confused looking folks in the chat. Everything looks fine. Okay, cool. All right, so this excuse me. This will probably be the last week that we are clipping, and I should be able to finish this tonight. We're going baggies on this thing, so it's not going to require quite as much organizational mojo as a lot of these previously required. Let's see here. We've got the pieces parts. So, what are we talking about tonight? We're talking about monster conventions. I am aware of 4 monster conventions, 3 of which are within driving distance of here, and the other of which is, of course, Concept World Expo. So we're going to talk about at least a couple of those, because I've been to 2 of the 4, and I'd certainly like to hear from the chat if there are other ones, other big events where folks have time to play. I'm aware of a WIFCon as well, where I think they take some extra time, but that's probably a less than 10-person total, maybe 15 people total event, and I think there's a WIFCon Europe as well. So there might be some smaller game-specific events that I'm unaware of that I'd like to get on the radar. So So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk, of course, about monster games. And, of course, what's prompting this is that we have a big monster game convention coming up in a couple of weeks. So we'll talk a little bit about that. If you have not yet gotten a hold of me for Winterfest, I think I've managed to get everybody into something that has reached out to me so far for Winterfest. It's probably too late now. However, if you want to come to Buckeye Game Fest in April and get into stuff there, man, that's a light blue to go along with that white. Then let me know, ardwulfslair@gmail.com. So before we get further into this, let's say hello to Bill Broadhurst, Marty Sample, David Imperato, Bayonet Brant, the youngster of the chat as usual, Joe Okabayashi, Wade Moore, Agray Day, Kilroy if Kilroy was here, Joe Faust from sunny Akron, Ohio, Tim Zales, Jeff Beeler, William Aarons, Charles Latora, Rick Cox, John Clark, Mickey Youth, Jeff Anderson, John Longshore in the house, Robert Moffat, Strelnikoff, Lind Pratt from sunny Central Ohio, Alan Salazar, Fucko, Michael Potts, Scott Coffold, welcome to the chat, Stigler is in the house, Tom Borman, Chad Kennedy, Krusty Captain, Iggy Cricktal, Nordic Maelstrom, cool name, Matt Taylor, Joe Perez, Henry Sikorsky, Mike Anthony, I'm not sure if I said you already, Vince Ree, Half-Assed Gaming, Alan Salazar, Sean Torno, Manders, Jason W., SW, Matt Taylor, Jeff Beeler, Agray Day, I think I've read a couple of those names twice, Carl Crater from the Wargame Bootcamp, Achilles, Daniel Silverthorne, multi-time winner of our giveaways here at Ardwulf's Lair, Bill Simone, Brian Gash, Vincenzo Beretta, Kyle Reese, Mac Rugby, Jeffrey Wesovich, William Bird, if I didn't get you already, Michael Kirk, and I think that's it. So, Novorossiysk, that's close enough, man. I'm good. I fooled around with the with Russian on Duolingo, and I'm like, it's really hard to pronounce. So I went back to German. So we've been doing German on Duolingo, which is a thing I was doing quite a while ago, and just kind of getting back to it. Streams seems to be cutting out right after the mention of WIFCon. All right, let me look it up. Hold on a second. No, everything looks fine from my side. The Tabletop's Edge. Welcome back to the stream, and thanks for coming. So before we proceed, let's mention that please do give the video a thumbs up. Please do subscribe to the channel. So clicking the little bell icon does help with the mysterious YouTube algorithm that is otherwise fairly ill understood. And don't forget to check out the links in the video description to the Patreon, the merch store, and the Ko-Fi. We do have a couple of shirts that I'm going to have for Winterfest. If anybody wants shirts for Buckeye Game Fest, let me know, because that's a ways away. Winterfest, it's too late to get more shirts. I never know when spring is going to take a month to deliver them. So that is all happening. The Fred Quartercast is really, really good, so I am very happy with it. So Brand is mentioning there is a Wargame Master event calendar on the Armchair Dragoons website, so please do send your info to them. If you see a Wargame, if you see that there's a Wargaming event that's not covered, let him know. So I will absolutely agree with that. So speaking of Scotland, so I got one of those DNA ancestry tests for Christmas. Because I'm kind of into that. It's kind of something that I kind of leave to my dad, who's retired and who's got more time to fool around with that kind of stuff than I do. So, but I got one of the DNA tests, and the results were somewhat expected and somewhat unexpected. So, as you know, we kind of figured I'm roughly half Italian of various different Italians, between Southern Italian, Northern Italian, and Sicilian. There's like no identifiable German in there. So the test I got kind of lumps that all into England and Northwest Europe, which is, kind of England, the Netherlands, and parts of northern France and very western Germany. But other than that, there's like no identifiable German there. So our theory about the name being derived from the Dutch mangle turns out to probably be accurate. What we did not foresee is the 25% Scottish. So we knew there was a little bit just because of names in the ancestry there, but 25% was significantly higher than anticipated. So that was all very amusing. So trip to Scotland at some point was something that was on my bucket list anyway. So anyway, no, we're talking about languages again here. Don't even get me started. I'd like to get one for my wife because she's got more mixed ancestry than I do, and mine's pretty mixed. So what I'm tempted to do is go buy a bottle of for the show of Bruichladdich, which makes you more Scottish just by saying it, and then I could take another test after a week or two of drinking Bruichladdich, and then verify that has in fact increased my Scottish percentage. So. Good one, Jason W. So that is fantastic. I've never had haggis. I am willing to try it, but you can't import haggis, and there's domestic canned haggis. But I would assume canned haggis is about as good a haggis as canned ham is ham. So, we did not, James Conway, we did not nail it down that tight. So super chats are on, folks. So feel free if you want to. Or if you can, it's all good. That does give me a giant notice that a super chatted question has been asked, so I won't miss it. Jeff Beeler, yeah, England and Northwest Europe has Burgundy in it, which is cool, but I'm not aware of Burgundian ancestry at any point, which doesn't mean there isn't any. I mean, you assume you go back far enough when we're all related, right? So it's all good. On the Mythical Sale video. So, some of you folks, I will give you an update on that, and it's a bit up in the air. So, some of you folks might be aware of tax reporting changes made in the U.S. For tax year 2021, paid in 2022. And I'm still looking into this, but you used to have $20,000 worth of transactions in order for, say, PayPal to report that income as income to the federal government. Now that's $600. And I'm getting conflicting reports as to whether that applies to last year's stuff or this year's stuff. But I can tell you that if PayPal is providing me with a 1099, I can't find it. So I'm still working on it. But what that means is that I've got to be a lot more careful about selling stuff because I'm going to have to report any money that I make as income, which, is typical IRS nonsense. But, none of us are empowered to do anything about that. So that is going to have to be a consideration for any future sale video. So I make no promises as of right now. Yeah, the William Aaron's the lie. I told this to my mom, and she says it's all fascinating, but she doesn't actually listen to anything that I say. But the Lombards and all that. So yeah, there's some. I mean, in and out of Italy since the fall of the Roman Empire have been a wide variety of non-Italian populations, right? So, Bis Nunya, thanks for stopping back by. Vegemite. I actually don't mind Vegemite or Marmite, but a little goes a long way, a very long way. So, OCS video progress did stall. I don't want to say stalled because I'm continuing to make progress, but yeah, you can. But I mean, if I bought the thing 10 years ago, or if I didn't buy it and it's a buddy's, then I got, I'm on the hook for the taxes. So I've got to take that all into account. And yes, Jeff Beeler, you are absolutely right. And I did keep a pretty good track of that for 2021. So it is my plan to do that, which might mean, this was not going to be the tax accountant stream, I tell you. I swear. But, yeah, but if I can't show that I bought it, then, I'm still on the hook for the income. If PayPal says we paid you $755, then I've got to figure out how to show that no, that's just not money that was thrown at me. That's stuff for other people or whatever. And there's ways around it, but like I said, it's going to be a thing that I have to deal with. So, Jason W., hey, don't argue with me, man. I completely agree. So, let's pull this just to keep an eye on stream health, which looks a bit dodgy. It looks like we did have a cut there for a second for no obvious reason. Yeah, you can absolutely, and that's one of the things that I do plan to deduct is a computer purchase. I don't think it has to be tied to your primary income source. I mean, lots of people have little side hustles, right? So now, if I'm handed a pile of cash, that's another thing. And I really haven't given any thought to bringing anything to Winterfest to sell. However, it'd probably be a good idea if I did, to be honest. Which reminds me, I meant to call today and get a appointment to get the car in the shop before we make that trip. So I got to get that done tomorrow. So we might do that. Aggrade Day says he's interested in the GMT Border Reavers game coming up, as his maternal family or whatever maternal family was knee deep in those conflicts. If you have like family history involved in that stuff, yeah, I absolutely sounds sensible to be into that. I bought a laptop in pretty much 4-channel stuff, actually, in 2021. So, I am reasonably sure that regardless of the sale throwing the number off, that I spent considerably more than I took in, right? So I think we will end up being fine at the end of the day. So, what's coming up? We have this week. I only got the one regular other video out last week, which was the 2 streams and the regular Thursday unboxing video. So we'll be doing that again, and this week's unboxing video will be Combat Volume 2, which Compass Games was kind enough to send me a copy of. I don't have Volume 1. So that's a good point, actually. I really should include a 2-minute tasting notes segment, so I could actually, I think, justify that. Mickey Youth asks, why do certain YouTube channels have pop-up ads and others do not? That is a thing that is set by the person that runs the channel. However, YouTube has defaults. So, for example, what you've noticed, I'm going to turn a fan on because I'm already roasting. So, you've no doubt seen those intensely annoying mid-roll ads that pop up in the middle of the video, okay? YouTube puts those on by default. So if you have like over a 2 or 3, or whatever it is, video, those will automatically be on unless whoever's running the channel goes in and turns that off. I turned that off because I hate that, and I'm guessing everybody that watches my videos hates that. I am willing to deal with videos in which you could always skip, right? In front of the video, ads in front of the video, but I'm not going to make people sit through ads in the middle of the video. Screw that. That's just not good watching. So Brant says, give us the finger, give us the thumbs up. Yeah, Marty, I tried, and I couldn't find it, which doesn't mean it isn't there. I got one... No, I take that back. I did get one from Google, actually. I just didn't... I can't find one from PayPal. Google, a few $100s, I think. I was not keeping track of my Scotch purchases. But it's easy. Since nobody pays cash for anything anymore, it's kind of easy enough to just go through your bank statement and run all that stuff down, right? I won't say I unsubscribe from channels that have mid-roll ads, but they're definitely annoying. And unless it's a channel that is of vast interest to me, I will probably avoid their videos if they have mid-roll ads on. Very irritating. You run into it a lot more on the video game channels because some of those folks are a lot bigger than me. Let me put it that way. And they are presumably making a living off of their channels, which I am not doing. So I'm a huge fan of YouTube and the YouTube model, and I think some great things are on YouTube, but that's damn annoying. So I literally have not used the laptop for anything but channel stuff. It's only really getting used when I'm traveling for, game conventions and stuff. So I think you can prorate it. Again, this is, don't get your financial advice from me, man. This is the same thing about the IP lawyer. Go find an accountant and have a tax accountant and have them talk to you about this stuff. So, and apparently we have some tax accountants here in the stream tonight. So, anyway, Monster Game Convention. So let's get talking about that. What else do I have in the outline here? Let's make sure I didn't miss anything. The numbers that YouTube is throwing me are off tonight for some reason, and I'm not sure what's up with that. All right, so what are we playing right now? We are still playing War in the Desert. We are in October 1942, so the Torch invasion is getting lined up pretty soon. I'm hoping personally to wrap this thing up in the next month or so. But bear in mind that we're going to take next week off. Is it next week? No, it's the week after off for Winterfest. So we'll see. I'll be straight up with you. I use ad block for YouTube. So usually on the computer, I don't have to put up with the ads, but on my mobile devices, phone and tablet, and I do watch a lot of videos on my tablet, you can't use those. So, that's a thing. First Monster Game Convention. So, I'm sure you can... So I can personally tell you that there used to be a thing at Origins called EuropaFest, or at least informally called EuropaFest, where they would set up, some big Europa game and play it basically the entire convention. Okay, but Origins even at the time was a lot bigger convention than that room, right? So I don't think we should count that. I think the first real monster convention is MonsterCon, which is part of and which kind of evolved into and is still probably at least the most photogenic thing at the Consim World Expo. Now I've never been, we've talked about this before, I've never been to Consim World Expo. That's another good point, Mickey. I also have to do that, and we do occasionally watch YouTube on the smart TV too. Weird. Anyway, I've got concurrent viewers 97, concurrent viewers 105. I don't know what the difference is. Who knows what's going on with that? So, who knows? So what do we mean, I guess, by monster conventions, right? So I think the traditional big gaming convention length is the typical 4 days, the typical Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, right? And smaller conventions kind of want to grow to that size, and some succeeded, some fail, obviously. So I think what we mean by monster conventions is a convention that's longer than that, so that you have more time to a convention that's Wargame friendly, for one thing, and which is longer than that, so that you can set up and play monster war games, or at least big hunks of monster war games. I would call Gen Con a monster convention, but the definition in that case is completely different. I'm really kind of tempted to go to Gen Con this year. I don't know if that'll happen. That might be completely unreasonable. But I don't care too much. I really only care about the max concurrence, which I could check at the end. So I don't really watch. I mean, it's cool to look over and see, oh, there's a lot of people. Crap. But otherwise, I don't care too much. So my convention loadout this year looks like, for big wargaming conventions, it's looking like Buckeye Game Fest and Winterfest, okay, which is in 2 weeks. Winterfest is in 2 weeks. Well, I do plan to go to WBC. That is almost certain to be I'd like not necessarily a day trip, but probably a weekend trip. Compass Expo is likely to be a weekend trip, assuming I can make it to Compass Expo. So people are in and out the whole time. It's fine. People, somebody's wife comes in and says, "What are you watching?" And they're like, "Oh, nothing," because they got to feel guilty about being a wargamer. So I haven't been to Gen Con in about 20 years, okay? The last Gen Con I went to was the last Gen Con that was held in Milwaukee. So it's been it's been 20 or 19 or 22 or something like that years since it's been in Milwaukee. Let me know if the sound is okay, by the way. Sound in last week's stream, nothing about the audio has been changed in any way, despite the new webcam. Do subscribe to the channel. I got the new notifications that for new subscribers. So yeah, my wife has come to accept it. She's like, "Oh my god, that's so boring." I think I've told that story. I know I've told the story, but I don't know if it's I've told it on stream. So we're playing Case Blue, right, in one of our buddies' basements, and we're sitting there playing them. And we had some kind of car thing going on. I forget exactly what at the time, where we only had one vehicle. So my wife dropped me off and then was going to go do something and was going to pick me up in like 5 hours or 6 hours or whatever it was. So she comes back early and she's like, "I'm waiting whenever you're ready." She's sitting out in the car, parked on the street, waiting for me to come out. And I'm like, no. My buddy who's there is like, "No, have her come in." So we had her come in. So she sits there for about an hour and a half or 2 hours or something like that, knitting while we're playing Case Blue. So we finish up and we get in the car and start driving away. And she looks at me and says, "That is the most boring fucking thing I have ever seen in my life. Oh my god. It's literally you bunch of old dudes puttering around this table, occasionally moving a piece, flipping through the rule book, and farting. That is boring." So, funny anecdote. So she does have a sense of what it is that we do, even though it's not her thing. So today's channel of the week, by the way, or this week's channel of the week, I should say, is Sean Baldwin. He's got like 130 subscribers. If you could go show him some love, that would be pretty cool. He does some pretty interesting looking content as well. So, and I was actually a little surprised when I looked at my list of previous channels of the week. I do have a spreadsheet for all this. And it was like, I haven't done him yet. I've been subscribed to him forever. So yeah, she's not wrong. Okay. She's not under a mistaken impression that this is actually a super exciting pastime. I'm just that boring. So wheezing. That's true. There may or may not have been wheezing in that particular day. So yeah, the last Europa Fest, quote unquote Europa Fest, was one table, as I recall. I was not involved at that time. I would stop in that room every single year though, because I wanted to see what they were doing, how far they would get, which typically wasn't that far. The centerpiece usually was the Big East front thing, of course. So Stigler says throwing up a leg is instant forfeit. I can't really argue with that particular house rule. Yeah, that's a different brown. There's a lot of very similar browns in this game. Very good. Very good. Thank you, Charles. I appreciate it. So, yeah, I haven't been... I mean, I appreciate that Gen Con is a very different show than it was back in Milwaukee, right? And I'm cool with that, but I would also at some point like to go back. Now, you know, if it doesn't happen this year, it doesn't happen this year. My wife belches like pro level belching, so FYI. Yeah, my wife actually recognizes Stuka Joe. She's like, oh, I like his voice. So I get my kicks above the waistline, sunshine. Murray Head, who did the song, it is the brother of Anthony Stewart Head, who played Giles on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, by the way. Just so you know that. So that is all awesome. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, you know, what a Gen Con trip looks like, right? I had talked a couple years ago, and I think this got derailed by COVID too, about like spinning out for Sunday just to kind of cruise around. But I'm not really clear that you can actually even do that. I mean, there's been like years where it's sold out. I'm like, okay, so does that mean I can't go? I that's what it sounds like. I don't know. It's not very far away. It's like 3 hours away. So it's, you know, it's not a big project to go to Indianapolis, even if it is just a day trip. And I think I'd like to go, I think just notionally, right? I think I'd like to go in a way that includes Friday and or Saturday just to see how much of a total circus it is. I would imagine. Yeah, Consim World is doing... So, Consim World is doing Consim World in Tempe, which is in August. Go check Consim World for the dates. And then Consim World Dallas. Again, go check Consim World for the dates. They had to shuffle both sets of dates because of bullshit, but... So, Gen Con aside... no, it's strictly, I think it's a 4-day convention. I don't know. I really just don't know about Gen Con. Like I said, I haven't been there in ages. So, you know, we'll report from there if we go this year. If we don't, then we still have our 2 big Wargame conventions, plus Origins, right, which we'll be doing Wargaming. So, and we have a reasonably firm but somewhat flexible plan to play Europa at Origins this year. So that is a thing that will be happening. At least, you know, that's the current plan, and we want to see that come back, right? We feel like Europa needs the exposure, and to what profit, I don't know that would be, but and we want to have a big game presence at Origins. So Marty mentions the hotel situation, which I am completely not going to repeat his non-family friendly language, but he is absolutely right about that. It is a complete mess, and I am in total agreement with that. That's a good point. Iggy Crichtel mentions ASL Oktoberfest, and that runs a week too. And I haven't been to ASL Oktoberfest in also like 20 or 25 years, but I believe there are some big campaigns of ASL happening at Oktoberfest. Okay. The other 4 big conventions are Winterfest, Buckeye Game Fest, WBC, and Tempe. What everybody around here calls just Tempe. But we mean Consim World Expo. Those are all week-long events that allow for big games to get played. And Tom MC, first of all, thanks for stopping by, asks, do you go to see new things? And generally speaking, at these types of conventions, at the monster game conventions, I believe that the answer is generally no. You are going to play a specific thing that you have arranged to play prior to the convention. In this case, for me at Winterfest, that's looking like Forgotten Battles, which we did have some personnel issues with Forgotten Battles, but it's still happening. John, we might end up drafting you, by the way, to play some Forgotten Battles, because We're short a couple of people, and the designer and somebody else are going to sub in, but we'll see how well that actually works. Convention rate, I'm not sure what the convention rate. I thought the convention rate was supposed to be $79. There's roughly $10 in hotel taxes and fees and stuff like that in Ohio. So, Brant, we will give you hard details. Just reach out to me off show, and we'll get this totally ironed out. So, I understand that you will need to submit your event. It's all good. So no, I think mostly that this is why I'm really strongly leaning in the direction of monster war games are kind of a separate hobby from regular board war games, because you approach them differently, you play them differently, their events are different, and they're held at different events. It's kind of its own thing at this point, and it is a smaller hobby, like a lot smaller hobby than regular board gaming. I mean, if you go to a GMT, think about all like the company events, like your I mean, if you go to Winter Offensive, MMP's Winter Offensive, or a GMT weekend at the warehouse or whatever, yeah, there'll probably be one or two big things set up that are going to get played for 3 or 4 days, but you're going to see a lot more tables of games that take 2 to 6 hours or whatever to play. So there is a lot of open. I mean, I've seen pictures and I've seen video walkthroughs, and thank God for Stuka Joe, and Callendale actually did some walkthrough of Consim World at one point, and First Minnesota, I don't know that they run a convention, but they have weekly meetings, which have been on hold, and they may have resumed really recently. I have never had Tony Curtis on this show. I have had Tony Burkett on this show, and Tony Burkett will definitely be back. Tony Curtis, I'd be like, I would just make Spartacus jokes the whole time if Tony Curtis came on this show. Let's face it. I don't really have any information on that St. Lo game, to be honest. I mean, I know it's not a Compass production. They're kind of distributing it in the U.S., and I think it's printed in Chinese with English rules. So I don't really have that much information on it. I do know that Mo either has just done or is about to do a video on it as well. Tom MC asks, at what point is a game a monster? Paths of Glory, Here I Stand can be upwards of 8 to 12 hours. Yeah, so I don't consider Paths of Glory or Empire of the Sun or Here I Stand. Here I Stand is a little closer than Paths of Glory. Paths of Glory shouldn't take 8 or 12 hours, right? I mean, yes, it can, but it shouldn't. Here I Stand will generally take 6 or 8 hours. So it's a little longer, but nevertheless, my kind of definition benchmark for monster games is to ask the question, well, is it a monster game because it's really big or because it takes a really long time? And I lean toward the definition of because it takes a really long time, more so than that it's really big. Because there's some 2-map games that don't take as long to play as you might think. So Jim Ozarski, first of all, Jim, welcome back. Historicon. Historicon is a convention that is just a 4-day. Correct me if this is wrong. I believe Historicon is a 4-day convention. Is that right? Now, on the other hand, like my definition of monster miniatures game is going to be quite different from my definition of a monster board war game, in I think a non-obvious way. I think a monster war game is a game that's going to take you, a week to play, at least a big chunk of, right? Where the monster miniatures game might only take you 2 or 3 days or something like that. So, and is that a totally arbitrary thing? A definition driven by my ignorance of the wargaming hobby? Yes, it totally is. So, Jeff says that a monster game is one that's hard to play on Vassal because the map is too big. So I actually disagree with that, too. I think it's actually easier to play. I mean, are there challenges related to getting the big picture on the map? Yeah, maybe, but I think you get used to that. I believe that monster games are much easier to deal with on Vassal than they are... What the hell is this? Are these partisans? Yeah, there's a partisan activation. That's interesting. SW, we just asked that question. There's obviously a correlation, right, between sheer size and and how long the thing takes to play. I saw a picture where today or yesterday where the Germans nearly captured Tito, and he like escaped just in the nick of time, but left his uniform behind, and they captured his uniform. Well, the other thing is, as Stigler mentions, he says that Vassal is great for big maps, and if you think otherwise, your module wasn't properly set up. And that is kind of common, to be honest. Bad Vassal module. I mean, you're lucky to have a Vassal module, right? Especially if it's some 40-year-old game. But Jason W., how about defined by rulebook length? Absolutely not. And I'll tell you the obvious counterpoint to that is ASL, right? ASL has, I don't know if it's the biggest rule book anywhere, but it's damn big, and it's generally not considered a monster game. Are there monster scenarios or ways to play ASL? Yeah, there totally are. But generally you're not going to refer to ASL as a monster game. Somebody tried to post a link and failed. It sounds like Michael Kirk. Yeah, only I and moderator John Longshore can post links. And that is a YouTube limit that I have not seen fit to try to fix. Because otherwise, I probably should. Because generally, there has been a very small number of yahoos that have crept in and put spam in the chat in these streams. But that number is pretty small, so... I should probably look into turning that control off. Now, if it becomes a problem, then. So, I mean, yeah, as Brant points out, any RPG is going to look like a monster game based on rulebooks. Not any RPG, but I mean, a lot of RPGs are going to look like, hey, where the hell is it? New Traveler rulebook from Mongoose Publishing. This is about 400 pages. 200. It's less than I thought, but it's 264 pages. So a much thicker book is Against the Dark Master. Because this is huge, right? This probably is 400 plus pages. This is 564 pages or so. Neither of those, by the way, are particularly complicated games by RPG standards. And there's not like a massive disparity between complexity levels in RPGs and complexity levels in wargames. I don't think. I mean, partially this is the stuff I like, right? So there's that. Agri Day mentions CASLO, the Canadian ASL Association Con. You should definitely talk to Brant about putting that on the calendar if it's not on the calendar already. Now, in a sense, though, there is a lot of overlap between RPGs and monster games. And I've talked a little bit about this before. It's kind of so we talked at some point about having a second stream, which is still my intention and probably won't happen until after Winterfest. And I said that before. But it's my intention to move the RPG discussion by and large to that second stream, so people who are into that can stop in for that stream and not this one. All right. So, I mean, I don't mind that the game's partially in Chinese. That's not a problem. It's just my question about what I don't know enough about the game to be intrigued by it. Let me put it that way. There is a huge piece of overlap between RPGs and monster games. And in a sense, monster games are war games played like RPGs. because you play the same. I mean, regardless of convention play, right? You play a monster. You say, hey, this thing's set up in so and so's basement or attic or garage or shed or whatever it is, and you go there every week, play for 4 or 6 hours or whatever it is, and then everybody goes home and you leave it set up. And you come back the next week and you play it some more. And you play until you're done, or you've decided that you're done. And that is exactly how a role-playing game works, except that you don't generally have to leave the RPG set up between sessions. You can put it all away. So there is a lot, I think, of overlap between in terms of like conceptual load, right, between RPGs and war games. Not necessarily in terms of audience, but at the same, in a lot of the monster games folks I play with are not RPG. A couple of them are, but generally speaking, they're not like RPG people too. So Tom MC says he likes the Traveler Library. This is not all of the Mongoose Traveler 2nd edition stuff. It is most of it except for the box sets. And I have a whole bookcase full of Traveler downstairs, which will eventually make it up here, but we'll do a video on that. I have made progress on this room. Right off camera, total shit show. So there's a reason why I had to reframe all the shots when I got the new webcam. But we're working on that, so... Holden Messerschmidt has always wanted to play a big Memoir 44 scenario like Overlord, but wouldn't call it a monster. So I actually have played big D-Day scenarios of Memoir 44 more than once, and I gotta be honest with you, it was a bad experience every time. And I don't know if... So I did it at Origins. That's probably part of it. It's like, okay, I've paid for this, because the way it works it used to work at Origins. We'll talk about this too if we get time, or if I remember. RPGs are more cat resistant. That is true. You pay for a 4-hour slot and the game's over in 45 minutes. That leaves everybody feeling rather sore about it. So, because the way it used to work was you paid basically $2 for each 2-hour that the event ran, right? So now they've made a big change at Origins this year, which is that you will, generally speaking, there might be some special events like maybe True Dungeon or something like that you have to pay separately for, but generally speaking, your badge is all inclusive. That is the justification for raising the badge costs this year. You will not need a boardroom ribbon. You will not need to pay for individual events. You will need to sign up for events, but generally speaking, you will not need to pay for events. Scotch. Agri Day S, is there a Monster Ancients game? I'm trying to think of something other than Imperium Romanum, and I can't. I would say, although Imperium Romanum is not a monster game in the conventional sense, you could play short scenarios. There are scenarios and footprint-wise, it's not that big. It's like, I think the decision game is, 3 maps, which is the one I currently have, and the Imperium Romanum 2, which was the last West End Games edition, was a map and a half. But that's it. That's not a huge footprint. Online monster gaming groups. Check out the Advanced After Combat group on Wargame Geek, actually. Yeah, Marty, I don't know. There's pushback on that, of course. I don't know if that's going to end up working out or not. I know you're being asked to do tabletop events, to sign up for events this year, which is good. So we'll see how all that works. Siege of Jerusalem is supposed to be a monster, and it's pretty big. Tabletop's Edge says he never found IR to be a monster game. All their scenarios were finished in a single session. I find that a bit surprising. I mean, certainly there are scenarios that you can play in a single session, but there sure look like big ones that'll take longer than that too. Yeah, so I can't really. That's the closest thing of Ancients monster gaming that I can think of. There's plenty on every other topic. Actually, there's plenty of monster games. Well, not every other topic, but all the other major topics. Civil War. You've got your Terrible Swift Sword, your 3 Days of Gettysburg, your Last Chance for Victory, whatever. even your war between the states. World War II, there's literally too many to count. World War I, you've got Der Weltkrieg, you've got Storm of Steel, you've got Balance of Powers, you've got a good selection of monster games. Vietnam, no, that's not true. They're absolutely that Vietnam 65 to 75. If you play the campaign, that's totally a monster game. World War III, there's plenty. There's plenty. I was really hoping for Third World War today, but it didn't show up. There's Third World War. There's the 1985 series from Thin Red Line. There's probably a couple others that I'm not thinking of off the top of my head. So there's a lot of monster games on every topic, kind of except Ancients. And then, of course, for Napoleonics, you've got, Labatt. And those are, not all of them are actual monster games, but a lot of them are. My voice feels kind of rough. And this actually happened last week and on Dan's show, even though that's only an hour. ASL Barbarossa, the whole thing, the size of a football field. Even just those 20 square blocks of Stalingrad that you play on in red factories would takes months to play. So Fucko mentions SPI First World War. So there's First World War, which is the refit of war in Europe. That is a legit monster. But World War I is a very compact game that you can easily play in one sitting. And even like the Age of Reason type games, you have Battles of the Age of Reason, and those are pretty much monster games too. And that is Caesar at Elysia. So probably I'm kind of guessing here because I haven't played it. The Great Battles of History games are, generally speaking, not monster games. Okay, the scenarios tend to be small-ish. Even the bigger scenarios you can absolutely play out in a 4-hour session or something like that. The biggest individual battles that are found in the series, the biggest individual battle I think is Pharsalus, which is in Hoplite. That is a very big battle, but I still think you could probably play it in a long sitting. Then you have Caesar and Alexandria and Elysia, which I think Elysia might be veering into monster territory because it's pretty big. I think it's 2 maps. It might be 4. I could be wrong about that. But it's got a lot of pieces, and it's a situation that's got to take some time to unfold. Marty mentions the Manila historical ASL that's coming out from Multiman pretty soon, it looks like. 6 maps. Counter-wise, it's not nearly as dense as like Red Factories. Highway to the Reich. I mean, there's, like I said, there's too many World War II monster games to count. There's 6 different Europa games that are monster games, right? So they're just in that one series. Not all of them are monster games, but several of them are. Siege of Jerusalem has been mentioned. Yeah, I've never played that. That's got a good reputation. I forget who the designer was on that. I think Bruno Senegalio was involved, but I don't think he's the designer. I might have to look that up now. That is something that we have talked about playing, actually, that we have just not got to. Fred Schachter, Bruno Senegalio, and Steve Weiss are the credited designers on Board Game Geek. Board Game Geek's real weird about that sometimes. Agray Day, are you talking about the GBOH Elysia, or are you talking about the Avalon Hill Elysia? Because the Avalon Hill Elysia's got a good reputation too, by the way, but I've never played it either. I'm familiar with the situation. It's a fascinating situation, and you can find YouTube videos on that situation. So, Empire in Arms, yeah. I agree with that. That's true of Napoleonic Wars, too, though. If you put the best player in the position of France and then kind of expect everybody else to gang up on them. Or put the player that nobody likes in the position of France and everybody else gangs up on them. That works, too. Also an alternate strategy. Invasion America, I think that was a 2 or 3 map game, as I recall. Have I ever actually handled that? I don't think that I have. Death Ride. Well, that's so. The Death Ride series might end up being the largest monster series. I mean, you got the Kursk series, you got the Normandy series, which is not finished. I think the Kursk series is, but the Kursk series is really, really big, and the Normandy series is going to be about the same size or bigger. Jeff Anderson is right about that. That is true. If you have like tailoring your player positions to match player capabilities in a monster game is something that you want to do or be aware of, because you absolutely can. Now, if you're playing at home, maybe this isn't that big of a deal, but if you're going to a convention to play, you want, at least decent quality play, right? Because you're going somewhere to do this. And if one person is like a severe weak link and shits the game up, then you got a kind of a major problem. Yeah, different brown than the other browns. Chad Kennedy asks about Third World War. That's should be on sale right now through Compass, actually. I'm not sure if you can still get a discount or not. Slens, thanks for stopping by. It's 3 a.m. here, so you must be somewhere in the European time zone area. Marty, I kind of like the counters. I don't mind. I got old-fashioned taste in counters, so take that for what it's worth. And I got old-fashioned taste in maps too. The maps are reasonably unattractive. The counters, I think, are pretty okay. So yeah, you should still be able to get on it. So I'm not even sure that MMP is even doing that anymore, where while they're shipping their pre-orders, they pull it off the website. I think that was some kind of website limitation that they had with their old website. I'm not sure they're doing that anymore. Either way, it's kind of stupid, because it's like, hey, people are starting to get it. People are starting to post pictures of it. People are starting to make videos about it. Oh, I can't order it yet because they're not going to be finished shipping pre-orders for another 3 weeks. That's probably not a great idea. Trafalgar with single ships. Yeah, play that out in Wooden Ships and Iron Men. You do it in close action, not close action. Close action would be worse. You could do it in flying colors faster, but it's still a big battle. There's a lot of games that are monsters or have monster footprint scenarios, right? And there is... do we count those as monster games? And I'm not sure that you do, but I'm not sure that you shouldn't, right? You just got to be careful about what you're talking about. You got to say, hey, no, ASL's not a monster game, but damn, this Red Barricade scenario is pretty big. So, and that's completely okay. So Roger Hemseth is obviously talking about Market Garden, and I lost the thread there. It would absolutely be better to handle Trafalgar in flying colors, and that is one of the things that flying colors is built to handle, is big Age of Sail naval battles. We're making pretty excellent progress on this too, by the way, I have to say. I love watching. I love Callendale. I'll be honest, I gotta be in the mood to watch Callendale's videos, but if I am in the mood to watch Callendale's videos, he's got deep insights that you sometimes have to watch an hour and a half of video to see. And he does make rules mistakes, but we all make rules mistakes, man. So, I'm not going to criticize him for that. You just got to take that with a grain of salt, right? Oops, things happen. Greatest Day is quite big, actually. So I think we're talking the Market Garden thing. I think we're talking about looks like Highway to the Reich. My understand now. I believe that the Decision Games version is a minimally changed version of Highway to the Reich, but I also believe that the original game from SPI has a lot of issues. I think that's a generally acknowledged thing. I'm not swearing by that. I'm willing to be convinced otherwise. But Vincenzo Beretta says, Leyte Gulf Avalanche is the definitive naval monster. It is a big game. Untested rules, broken victory conditions, and so forth. I've got an unboxing a buddy unboxing video of that in the queue to come out at some point. Jeff Anderson mentions the Tannenberg game. We're talking now about Der Weltkrieg. So, where the hell is my Der Weltkrieg stuff? It's in one of those boxes off camera. It's a World War I operational game that now comes. It was originally released in a slightly different format. Now comes in 5 volumes. It's from SPW Paul Schroeder Designs or something. I'm mangling that, but it is SPW. You can get them through Decision Games, but Decision Games is not the publisher. I bought mine from Doc himself, actually, and Doc gave me a very good price on them, so I was very happy about that. It's a really interesting series. It's a lot less complicated than you might be afraid that it is. You can, in principle, put the entire thing together and play out all of World War I in Europe and the Middle East. That has been attempted. I'm very curious to see what that looks like at Winterfest, because there is going to be Der Weltkrieg on the table at Winterfest. I'll have videos of this. So let's actually digress for a moment and talk about the next couple of shows, because there's important things that folks need to know. I may have a video that comes out on Monday, the 14th of February, saying that there's no show tonight. Go watch the show from last night. Because the show on the 14th, those of you who know what the 14th of February is, so we won't be having a show that day for reasons. That show will be on Sunday night instead. Okay, that's 2 weeks from now, right? That's the show after next. Next week's show, on the other hand, is going to... No, that's next week's show. Shit. Yeah, that's next week's show. Okay, so I'm glad I mentioned it. And then the following show on the 21st, I will do live from Winterfest. Now that I have a portable webcam to do it with. Microphone's going to be an issue. We'll have to figure that out. I may have to buy a lavalier mic, actually, and figure out how to use it. So we might have to do that. Mo from Mo's Game Table is here. Mo, when was or is the video on St. Lo? Because folks want to see it. You got that published already? All right. We got a huge pile of counters off camera here. I may set up a second camera. I watched a video today on how to use your phone as a webcam, and it looked like a giant pain in the ass. So we're not going to be doing that. Yeah, exactly, Marty. This is exactly it. We are going to earn karma by, and I already told her, she was impressed. Like, oh, you're moving the stream? Really? Oh. So we're already working on that. So I don't know where we're going to dinner yet, but we're going to dinner somewhere, and it's going to be fancy and nice and all that jazz. February 14th, I should run a pre-shot video on integrating Wargaming and life partners. That's actually a great idea, but I'm not making that video, so I'll leave that to somebody else. I am not possessed of special wisdom in that department. Okay, so. Oh, the Super Bowl is that? I don't care. I don't watch the Super Bowl. So if that's going to happen at the same time as the Super Bowl, oops. And I have six viewers next week, then that's what it is. I don't mind. I'll preempt the Super Bowl, and let's face it, it's very plausible that this show will be more entertaining than the Super Bowl. That is often the case. I haven't watched. I mean, I've said this before too. I'm from Cleveland, man. The NFL is ruined for me, and the Browns have certainly provided me with little incentive to revisit that decision. So. I have not watched a Super Bowl in a long time, and there's cool commercials that I will catch on YouTube afterwards. So I'm good. So, and Cincinnati's in the Super Bowl. I'm aware of that, but I'm not from Cincinnati and don't care too much. I mean, would it be cool if Cincinnati won? Sure. Mo, very good, very good. I haven't watched any of the Winter Olympics yet. I do kind of like to watch the Olympics, less because I'm into the particular sports. I kind of don't like the way the coverage works nowadays, where it's like all centered around, it's like this commercialized thing where they gotta only show the super popular sports. I'd like seeing all the weird sports, and when I was a kid, seeing the people from the countries that I'd never heard of before. I thought that was kind of cool, and I still think that's kind of cool. And the coverage in recent decades does not really accommodate that style of watching the Olympics. So, what beverage do you pair with a main course of East Front? Vodka, comrade. What do you think? Do I have vodka? Yes. So I'll give you spirits review here. It won't take long. We have a micro distillery here in Columbus called Middle West Spirits, and they did a brand called Oyo, OYO, and they had a vanilla and a vanilla vodka. I mean, I don't like vodka particularly. It's like fine if you're putting it in a cocktail, but I'm not a big fan. It's just right. So this stuff was great. It was fantastic. So when my wife was having muscle pains, we're kind of a believer of, hey, take some medicine to help with your muscle pains. So I bought her a bottle of the new stuff, which is in a different bottle than it used to be, and it's friggin' terrible now. So not recommended at all. It was great before. It was just delicious. You could drink it neat. Now it's awful. Yeah, don't get me started. The Crystal Skull vodka is cool based on frankly, because of the bottle. I don't believe that it's good vodka. But then again, don't ask me for opinions on vodka, right? I mean, I'm probably going to tell you this is terrible. I used to drink a fair amount of vodka martinis, and Grey Goose is really good for that. If you're looking for good vodka for a vodka martini specifically, I really like Grey Goose for it. It's a French vodka. That's a little weird, but it's still really good. It makes a terrible cordial. I tried making cordials out of it at one point. It was dreadful. Buy the cheap vodka for that. Hey, Alberto Martin Bartolome, subscribe to the channel. I see I've got to make some adjustments to that. Let's see if we can do that. Oh, I can click that together. That's cool. Cool. Look at that. Very fancy. We'll have to figure that out. Anyway. No, they did not do that in Ohio. I will, I don't especially want to talk about this. But, it's not going to be token up on camera. So I don't smoke weed. And if it were legal, I believe, continue with my current policy of not smoking weed. Because I don't want to eat all the friggin' chips. I'm fat enough. However, I do take CBD. The CBD oil, and I have found that it is really good for reducing anxiety without necessarily giving you strange hunger pangs where you eat all the Fritos. So don't vouch for it for everybody, but that is my experience. It has been a big help in managing stress. So, but that's the stuff without the THC in it. So, and I've experimented with the stuff with the THC in it, and I prefer the stuff without the THC. Beefeater. Beefeater is very good for gin and tonics. Very good for gin and tonics. Which reminds me, I have ice and limes. I need to make some gin and tonics. And good gin, actually. The gin I have is Hendrick's, which is like really good gin. It's like the Grey Goose of gin. Ooh, the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull movie. You know, on paper that sounded okay, and when you got to the actual movie, it's like, oh shit, this is terrible. So, I mean, that was a thing that back in the day, we don't really do that too much now, but we used to do that where we would, you know, conduct our whiff turn in the accent as Winston Churchill, for example. That was a thing that would happen back in the day, completely free of mind-altering substances. And this is probably going to run counter to some people's opinions and experiences, but I do not like to use mind-altering substances while gaming. That includes, you know, whatever, including alcohol. I would much rather... you know, now it's cool because I don't, you know, I'm just talking and it helps me talk a lot. And I don't have to concentrate on anything really here. DMJ 284, but I prefer not to deal with that. You know, if nothing else, it makes me tired, and makes me want to take a nap and go to bed. And when we're done with the stream here, I'm going to eat dinner and then maybe check into ESO for 10 minutes. And then go to bed. So, Mo, yeah, there was quite a bit of talk about St. Lo. Sounds like there's some negative opinions on it. I don't have an opinion on it. I said that, so that's all. Yeah, but I know you had a video, so, or have a video on the schedule. Tom Clark says that he has a Eurofront set up on a large table in his friend's basement. All 3 fronts set up. Any insight as to how long we'll be playing? I've never played Eurofront. I believe you can play it in a 4-day convention weekend. I've seen it played at Origins. So, so it plays relatively fast. It's got a big footprint, but doesn't take as long to play as that necessarily suggests. I also don't know anything about curling, just to get that on the table, right? DMJ284 says, when do the pay later orders for Compass pre-orders get charged? So I have a buddy who has pre-ordered using the pay later option who has been charged. So I would say reach out to sales at Compass Games. Mo will correct me if this is the wrong email address. I think it's sales@compassgames.com. If you have like an order number, I'd look an order number up. But you probably should have been charged for that already, I think. My buddy has definitely says he's been charged, so I assume he's not lying to me. Coffee is best for gaming in the day. Yes, I completely agree. In fact, you know what? So at Winterfest, it's at a Best Western hotel. That's an older Best Western hotel. It's not super nice or super luxurious or anything, but it's fine, and they have friggin' coffee. So I've been to too many conventions where I have traveled to the convention and there's no friggin' coffee, and that's a problem. So I bought caffeine pills. These are about equivalent. These are the standard things you get them from. I got them from Amazon, I think, and it's about the equivalent of 2 cups of coffee. So don't pop like 5 of them at a time, or you might explode. But I am completely okay with just taking the caffeine pills. But I'm also okay with drinking the coffee if the coffee's available. Yeah, Irish coffee. I really like Irish coffee, actually. Okay, so if Mo's probably got a better sense of how that works than I do, so defer to him on this. So if he says that things are still in progress, then assume things are still in progress. I'm amused that no less a luminary than Mark Herman had to bend over backwards to get himself a copy of the 1985, I think, Under an Iron Sky. So, Roger says a man who hates Desert Fox Deluxe can't be all bad. Stigler would definitely agree. All right, so next we're going to pull the box out, the box O baggies, and figure out what goes where. Because some of these things will go into existing baggies. Doug says he feels about coffee the way that Stigler feels about curling. I'll tell you what. We had this place when I was living in the apartment. We had this place in downstairs called Roosevelt's Coffee House, I think. I think that was what it was called. And man, their coffee was good. Wow, it was like, wow, this is good coffee. Like really good coffee. Yeah, I saw that. It's like Fabrizio's like, Mark, why didn't you ask me? We just set you up. So I think I can make fun of the Italian since I'm about half Italian. So you can learn Italian on Duolingo too. I started doing that too and lasted about a day. So I can't do more than one. So that's my issue. Orange? No orange. I mean, admittedly, I drink the coffee for the caffeine, right? I don't necessarily drink, and I drink coffee black. I don't necessarily drink coffee because I like the taste of coffee, necessarily. But, you know, I have had coffee that tastes pretty good. Diet Coke. I will say Diet Coke is better than Diet Pepsi. Diet Pepsi is liquid ass. So, no thank you. I don't like regular Pepsi either, so there's that. Jason W. says that curling, and I think he's right about this, curling is basically ice bowling. That sounds approximately correct. I mean, nobody, at least in my part of the year, nobody in Ohio anyway, knows anything about curling except what they have seen on the Olympics. So Brian Foley asked about Salerno 43. So I haven't actually heard any news on that. So as of, I think, last week, GMT was saying they had received 2 40-foot containers and were looking to start shipping later in the week. And that was last week. I haven't heard any news since then. Let's see if there is news since then. Where the hell would the news be? Hold on. I know I haven't gotten anything yet. And GMT does. I am infamously the last person to get their stuff shipped from GMT specifically. Let's see if there's actually news. There's some questions about an updated vassal module for Pacific War, which I personally certainly hope there's something in preparation, because the existing vassal modules for Pacific War are not great, to be honest. What are everyone's favorite monster games? Asks Jeff Beeler. That is a great question. My favorite monster games are going to probably tend to be OCS games and maybe GOS games. But, you know, I'm a monster gamer, so I don't really see any new news here from... Okay, February 4th, which is actually just a couple days ago. All the shipments are in the warehouse, organized, ready to process for shipments. 900 plus pages of shipping info and labels. One of the 2 largest they've ever had, the other being Imperial Struggle, but there's 7 different items here. So they're working on it. They'll be able to start packing Euro-friendly orders on Monday, 3 to 4 day process. And there's a lot of them going out. That'd be today. All the general P500 shipping will go out after that. So Europeans get shipped first, but probably get their stuff last, to be honest. So, Gregory Campagna asks if I set a schedule for the OCS intro series. I was really trying to get the first episode out in January, but that did not happen. And now I've got Winterfest coming up, so we're looking like probably looking like March now, to be honest. I don't know that anybody... I don't want to blame anybody for screwing up the modules, but, you know, they're just not up-to-date modules. They're not up to the current standard. I would definitely like to try the 1985 series from Thin Red Line. I have all 3 of them. Very interested in the Sacred Oil specifically, actually. So we need baggies. Ruh-roh. Okay, good. I'm not out of these size baggies. I've got a drawer right here, which is all clipping supplies, which include the baggies. The best place to buy these is Walmart. This bag of like 100 or whatever it is, tiny bags, and you can get bigger ones too, is like $3 or something like that. So I'm not the world's biggest fan of Walmart either, but because of the amazing shopping experience that you always have there. But this is there; it's the best place to get that. So whenever I go to Walmart, which is reliably once a year or so, I buy like 3 or 4 bags of these things. So, Joe Faust asks, are there some battles or campaigns you think are better served by the monster format? Yes, but that's a function of scale too, right? I mean, so I can play, for example, and I'll name 2 games that I have played and like as my examples here. I can play Normandy out in Normandy 44, and it will take, a medium to long sitting to play out, and it's a great game. It will play out really well. I'll have a really positive experience with it. And that's a regimental game, okay? The units are regiments. Or I can play that campaign out in Atlantic Wall, which, in 5 days of playing, I think we played roughly about 5 or 6 game days, which is 3 turns per day, so that's more than 1 turn a day. So, so I would, my assumption is that probably nobody domestically is going to get their shipping notice before late this week. Let me put it that way. And, a lot of times these shipping estimates are optimistic. So there's that. Slen says his Rostov 41 game is already running for 3 weeks. Oh, yeah. I mean, we played, we played Second Front for like a year and a half. So, best 45-minute war game. I'll be honest. I'm not the right person to ask the question about what's the best war game that fits into 45 minutes, because I don't play those. I'm not saying never. I'm saying usually those aren't the kinds of war games I play. Not that I only play monster games, but it's going to take you 6 or 8 hours or 10 hours or whatever to play out Normandy 44. That's more my speed. Games in that really are going to hold my interest start at around 2 to 3 hours, and often run longer than that. So you are much better asking the Player's Aid, for example, of best 45-minute war game than you are me, because they have a broader. Their interest in wargaming is less narrow than mine. My interest in wargame is actually kind of narrow, and that's not a boast. It's actually kind of annoying, because there's a lot of games that otherwise it would be cool to play, but I don't get to play because my tastes are so narrow. So yeah, Shores of Tripoli you could play in about an hour. I'll agree with that, and I have played Shores of Tripoli, and I liked Shores of Tripoli quite a bit. Civil War monster games. I mean, so my favorite Civil War monster games, and chat, please pipe up, is probably the great. So I think we're talking tactical games in this case, right? I have had a really good time playing the Great Battles of the American Civil War. I've had a really good time playing Line of Battle. I have had a less awesome time playing War Between the States. I think War Between the States has some really neat and effective ideas in it, but it basically kind of sucks. And I'm not inclined to try to play that again. Okay, everything else that we have for this is all markers, and I'm not going to clip the markers. And we're basically, we've gotten 2 counter sheets done here tonight, so that's pretty good. So we're done clipping for tonight. Last Chance for Victory. I haven't played, but I have played. None But Heroes, which is the Antietam game. I had to look because I couldn't think of it. That's the Scotch talking. And it's a really good system. It's a really nice system. Battle Cry. I mean, I've never played Battle Cry, but I mean, it's Commands and Colors. How bad can it be? It's probably fun to play. You can play most Commands and Colors scenarios, I don't know, about 45 minutes, but an hour and a half to 1 to 2 hours, I think that's generally true. Monster Strategic Level ACW game. Yes, there's War Between the States from SPI, later redone by Decision, to the point that in addition to the original vintage SPI mistakes that required errata back in the day, all of which are reproduced in the Decision version game, Decision also introduced new Decision errata into the game as well. So it is a dead nuts on reprint of the original War Between the States. And like I said, it's got some neat things going on. Its problem is a scale problem. And just the scale makes for kind of bad gameplay. It's like, okay, I'm gonna go again. I'm gonna spend my I'm the Union. I don't have command points to spend because I drew the friggin' zero chit again. So I'm gonna roll for every single leader on the board to see if they can act. No. Okay, I just spent 20 minutes figuring out that I have nothing to do this turn. And a turn is a week. So then you do it again. And maybe you get to move 1 or 2 guys. It's because of the scale, it's a bad game. But there are some cool things. The way that the way the production works is pretty cool. The way the reinforcements, where you have to call up rounds of draftees, and that hurts you politically. I think that's actually really cool. And those flood your reinforcement pool with personnel points again. That's actually pretty cool. There's things to like about the game, but the turn-to-turn gameplay is not fun. That's my pocket review of War Between the States. There's also the Victory Game Civil War, which I wouldn't call a monster. You could play that in a weekend, but it's kind of big. There's also War for the Union, which was from Clash of Arms and was recently redone by Compass. Recently as in 2 or 3 years ago now. The Victory Games, Erkley Smith Civil War, I wouldn't call it a monster game, but some people would. Some people call Empire of the Sun a monster game, and they're just wrong, but, I don't want to argue with them either. Mickey, don't ask me. One more example of half-ass work by some people. So, so not really recommended War Between the States. I'm glad in almost all these cases, it's like, okay, look, I got some serious problems with this game, but I'm glad we played it because I'm glad I had the experience of playing it. So I can say, hey, we played War Between the States, and that's cool. We played War Between the States. I don't think it's a very good game. So the U.S. Civil War from GMT and Mark Simonich, that plays for design reasons. It looks very similar in scale, scope, all that to the Victory Game Civil War, and plays a lot faster. It plays a lot faster. You can play it in a day. If everybody knows what they're doing, you can play it in a day. So, all right. So, let's talk about what's coming up. So we've already mentioned, if anybody missed it, next week's show will be on Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern instead of Monday night. All right? And then the following week's show will be at the regular time, so everybody tune in as normal, but it will be live from the road at Winterfest. So that's all cool. We will have an unboxing this week. It's going to require a lot of editing, actually, because the video got messed up. But I have not played War for the Union. I did have a conversation with some people that were playing with War for the Union at Compass Expo, and they really liked it. There are people that like it. I really do. However, here's the thing, and I don't want to badmouth War for the Union. It's supposed to be okay, but the fact is that many people consider the definitive strategic level Civil War game, at least Hex and Counter, to be the Eric Lee Smith Victory Game Civil War. War for the Union, it did not succeed in displacing it, nor did U.S. Civil War for that matter. But I think U.S. Civil War is, which there's a new printing coming like any time. I think U.S. Civil War, because it's playable in a shorter period, I think it's easier to get into that. It's easier to pitch that to people. Tom Clark says flat top. That's great fun. So typically that is a side thing that happens at Winterfest. I don't know if it's happening this year, where there will be a referee double-blind game of flat top, which is just a ton of fun. It's a lot of fun. Just a great game. John Longshore says, if you want to sell something at a convention, what do you need? It depends on the convention, right? So if you have, like at Consim World or at Compass Expo, you can just show up with your stuff, put tags on everything, and you probably need cash for change, but otherwise you're probably okay. I wouldn't necessarily assume you need tons of cash, but if you could break it 220s, I think you're probably covered. At like Winterfest, where there aren't, one of the great things about Winterfest is you get to really focus on play, because there's no dealers, there's no seminar, there's no speech. None of that. It's 8 days of intense play of whatever it is that you're playing, and that's a great experience. You can get a similar experience at Tempe, but you do get interrupted by the speech and the dealer's room and all that stuff, which there are those things. However, there's plenty of people that bring up their miscellaneous trash to sell at Winterfest, right? And you get to pick through that. So I may do that this year. We'll see. I have kind of promised the channel, right, the viewers, that I would do a sale video. So I'm thinking about not doing that. But on the other hand, I'd sure like to get rid of half of this shit. So there's that. Flat top. Yeah, there's balance problems in a lot of those games, but flat top is so good. It's just so good. I cannot praise flat top highly enough. After now I would have told you something totally different, back when Avalon Hill was still alive, right? But now, today, I think flat top is probably my favorite Avalon Hill game. Compass Operational Scale System. Kyle Reese says that he saw a review of the new Compass Operational Scale System. Looks interesting and innovative. I had the Vietnam one, and it did not speak to me, and I dumped it. There are people that like that system, and I've talked to people who do like that system. So, even back to the first game, the Korea game, he's got a bunch of them in the pipeline, so people who are interested in that system will have plenty of games to pick from. And let's face it, the most important thing is, are you interested in the topic anyway? So let's see what Adam's got up his sleeve on that. John Keyport says, question on Library of Napoleonic Battle. Sees some criticism of its combat system, bloodiness, and relatedly its ahistoricity. As I'm a fan, curious as to my view. Okay, so I am aware that there are people who prefer the alternate. Marcus, somebody reads, I think it's Marcus Stumpter that did an alternate set of rules for it. So it is a push-pull CRT, okay? So it's not a very bloody CRT. There's a lot of forced retreats and stuff like that, but you have to consider what the scale is, right? It's like hourly turns or 2-hour turns, and it's a brigade level game, right? You're not talking about battalions. So I think that level of CRT, I mean, you can do step losses, right? And you can also leverage the game mechanics to leverage artillery and increase your chances of doing losses. So I think that's part of that criticism is poorly motivated, in the same way that some of the criticism of OCS's artillery rules are poorly motivated, in that you look at it and you say, yeah, it really makes sense that it's a problem that it costs so much supply to run artillery, but it's so cheap to fly air and fly air barrages. But that isn't a problem. That's a decision you have to make as the person running that side. You have to say, I can't afford, well, maybe you try an air barrage and you fail, but I have a much better chance in most OCS games because there's way more factors of actually doing the result that I want, which is usually just a DG, but sometimes it can be a step loss if you feel that the hex is overstacked particularly. a much better chance to do it using artillery. So, and there's assumed to be some organic artillery inside the divisions and stuff like that too. So that statement that the CRT is not bloody is true, but I'm fine with it because of the scale of the game. So let me put it that way. Mo said that CSW Dallas is now officially announced on the site. I believe that we have already mentioned it, actually. What are the dates of CSW Dallas, Mo, since you're here? Since I'm sure you are on top of that since you live a block from the convention. John Krantz said that Dallas registration should open in a few days. That's cool. Ken X says he's been working on an LNB variant that's turned into an entirely different game system, only using the maps and the OBs. That's cool. I mean, and for those who want to play with the alternate rules, I think those are completely portable. So you can just take all your existing Library of Napoleonic Battles games and just play them with the alternate rules, and you're good. But it doesn't bother me. I mean, it's the old library. It's the old Napoleon's Last Battle system, right? So May 12th to the 14th. So love to come, no chance. No chance whatsoever. And actually, I'm pretty sure that, Marty, Mo beat to it, but just, major conventions that I have to fly to are just not happening this year. So we'll see what happens next year. Very tasty scotch, by the way, and very affordable. If you're interested, and I've said this before, if you're interested in a entry level, as we say, single malt scotch, this is a Speyside Tamnavulin double cask, bottled at 40%, which is low, but you don't need much. I didn't put any water in it either, so that's fine. Alcohol is a carrier of flavor, so if it makes a difference. The stuff bottled at 46%, you might have to put water in it, but you'll get more flavor because it was bottled with more flavor because it's bottled at a higher percentage of alcohol. So, and don't feel obliged to put water in it if you don't want to. You can. There's nothing wrong with putting water in it. And in fact, it opens the aroma up. But because I have a fan going, my nose is stuffed up anyway. So, the Kansas City Historical Games Convention looks pretty good. I actually thought about going to that this past year, and it didn't happen because Kansas City's kind of drivable, but it didn't happen basically because I looked at airline tickets and I'm like, holy cow, these are expensive. And we did not do it. So, Dallas Allen Marriott. Okay. Tabletop Edge says Last Blitzkrieg is the most playable monster game he's ever played. So, when's the next episode coming out? Because I'm literally on the edge of my seat waiting for the next episode to come out. And I understand it's a lot of work, so I'm not actually trying to hassle you about it, but I'm hassling you about it. So, it is a great series. If you have not watched the Tabletop's Edge series on Last Blitzkrieg, he's playing with the current rules, which does make a significant difference. Highly, highly, highly recommend it. It is one of the best playthrough series I have ever seen on YouTube. So, and he can't be a channel of the week because he was already channel of the week, but go subscribe to the Tabletop's Edge if you're not subscribed already. And he's got over 1,000 subscribers now, so he doesn't qualify. I think he does. Bob Moriarty says, first of all, Bob, welcome to the stream. Started drinking high-quality, non-alcoholic microbrews. I've never tried non-alcoholic anything. I am fine with the alcohol because this is all I drink, right? I have, during this show, typically, I have 2 of these. That's roughly 2 to 3 ounces, maybe 4 ounces of alcohol. And that's it. That's really all I drink. So, I talk about alcohol a lot because I enjoy it, but I also am very much a quality over quantity type of person. Now, there's reasons to drink non-alcoholic beverages that are medical reasons and addiction reasons and stuff like that. So I'm not begrudging anybody's. I just don't have any experience with that. Drink what makes you happy, as far as I'm concerned, and that you can not shit your life up. Yeah, I saw that. Stigler, there's a GBACW convention. So my request for you, Alan, is to get in touch with Brant at the Armchair Dragoons and get that on the calendar, because that sounds like a cool event, actually. At Corinth, Missouri. ReaperCon. Where's ReaperCon? I've never heard of it. What is ReaperCon? Is it a wargame convention, RPG convention, board game convention, tiddlywinks convention, furry convention? We're going to assume furry convention if we don't hear anything else. Although I don't have any real problem with those folks either. They're doing what makes them happy, and if it ain't hurting anybody, and it's all consenting adults, who cares? So, is it weird? Yeah, but I don't care. So, yeah, Greg Grant says, finish up last Blitzkrieg so you can get Panzer's Last Stand. That was let's not pretend that the Tabletop's Edge last Blitzkrieg series was not a factor in me rebuying the entire series, because it totally was. I'm like, well, crap, this looks awesome. I'm going to buy this. Again, damn it. ReaperCon, Denton, Texas, Labor Day weekend. Miniatures painting. I haven't actually wiped my mouth. What I am doing is doing this a lot because my crappy mustache is irritating. That's the problem. Yes, Jason LaRiviere. Yes, we have literally already covered this in this show about us participating in what is possibly the most boring hobby on the planet. Already covered this episode. Mississippi. Oh, well, hell. I'll tell you, when is it? Did we say when it is? I thought it was, yeah, when is that, Stigler? I'll tell you what, I've been to Mississippi early in the year, like in February, and it's gorgeous in Mississippi, like in January and February. So, Jackson, Mississippi. When I was working for Delphi, since it's been so long ago I can say the name of the company, but I was working for Delphi. Yeah, that Delphi that was in bankruptcy for a million years and got spun off of GM to make basically mostly wire harnesses. But they did other stuff too. They sent me down to Jackson, Mississippi, where I had what might be the best steak I have ever had in a random steakhouse in Jackson, Mississippi. Would I wear a dwarf costume to a monster game convention? I've never gone to a convention in costume, so I'm not really into... I actually sort of admire the craftsmanship of cosplay, but I'm not into that. I've never been to a convention in costume. My wife has. But I have not been to a convention in costume and have no plans to do so. I might wear a kilt this year at Origins. We'll see. And again, fat, sweaty men in kilts is not a rare sight, and I might decide not to play into that particular stereotype, unless I can also find a black trench coat to also wear with the black utilikilt. That I might do just to play into the stereotype. Best barbecue is North Carolina barbecue. I'm gonna stake that out right now. I like the North Carolina barbecue style the best. So, a lot of people will disagree with that, and that's okay. My least favorite barbecue is Kansas City barbecue. It's this week. Stigler says it's this weekend. Well, shit. I guess we're not driving to Mississippi this weekend then, huh? Yeah, I mean, and the weather, I mean, unless something weird happens, the weather should be amenable to walk those battlefields if you want to go down there and spend extra time. That's a really cool idea, actually. I guess I don't know what the weather's looking like down there right this minute, but I mean, when I was down there in January, February, it was really nice. So, yeah. So Brant's got that going for him. He's got the North Carolina barbecue. Even the South Carolina barbecue is pretty good, I think. curate the neck beard. Yeah, so I mean, I do have this is trimmed, okay? I do have a tendency toward relatively severe neck beard. So I could neck beard the fuck out for Origins if I had appropriate time of preparation. So I'm not growing my hair out though. That's just not something I'm willing to do. My hair doesn't really grow long. It grows out, and I look like friggin' Londo from Babylon 5. And while that would be cool for portly Londo cosplay, which I have considered actually, I would also have to grow my hair for probably 2 years to get it to do that. And I'm probably not going to. It will probably annoy the shit out of me long before I get to that point. Oh yeah, so there's a lot of huge variation in barbecue styles between like Kansas City and Texas and the Carolinas and the Deep South and all that stuff. So yeah, Carolina barbecue is usually more about the pork, but pork's tastier than beef anyway. I do like brisket, but I actually have a corned beef brisket that is downstairs in the fridge that I am going to cook at some point. We should have done that for well, hey, St. Patrick's Day is coming, right? Brisket is really tricky to cook. It is sometimes dry. We've got this regional place here in town called City Barbecue, which is a Cincinnati-based chain, but there's like 5 or 6 of them here in town. We go there relatively regularly, and I often get the brisket, and it's very inconsistent because it's like legit people, humans cooking the brisket every day there at City Barbecue in the restaurant. So it is inconsistent. It's tricky to do. Sometimes it is dry. You got barbecue sauce if you hate that it's dry. So yeah, I'm much more a pork fan than I mean, I like beef as much as anybody. Don't get me wrong. But if I'm going to eat beef, I think I'd rather have a steak. If I'm going to have barbecue, I think I'd rather have pork. So let me put it that way. So according to Stigler in the GBACW Facebook page, which I think I'm in that group, it's April 24th through the 30th. So that's a nice big long convention. So it's in April now. I thought it was this weekend. April 24th through the 30th, which is a week-long Sunday through Saturday event. So a nice big long event. If anybody's going, I would love to hear more about what's happening at that convention. Lynn, I thought City Barbecue started in Cincinnati, actually. I could be wrong I might be thinking of Graders, actually. That's possible. Now, it's entirely plausible somebody's got their own smoker and has mastered the technique of smoking brisket and gets it right every time. That's totally plausible. But City Barbecue, with their guy making $8 an hour in the bag, he has not mastered the technique. So I would actually really like to try making the Jewish style brisket. So one of the interesting things that you're to some extent, when you start getting into genealogy, we're going to talk about this for probably 5 minutes. When you start getting into genealogy, you start looking at online sources, and yeah, you can go to, parishes and graveyards and stuff like that, and the serious people do. When you start looking online, you start finding places in the family tree where, well, is this the right person? Or is this other person the right person? Or do I just not have the right person? So there was a thought that there was some Jewish ancestry in the family tree. And I was I found that relatively convincing. But that turns out to, according to the test we took, which, aren't definitive. There's a margin of error and all that. That's how it works. It doesn't look like that's the case. It looks like the hypothetical Jewish percentage was replaced with Scottish. So, which is hilarious. But I would actually like to try the Jewish style brisket. There's a good recipe for it on YouTube. One of the big things I subscribe to on my personal channel, which is not really a channel because there's a couple of videos there, but it was test videos for the most part. One of the things that I subscribe to is cooking videos. So now, if I was in SoCal, I wouldn't even be concerned about friggin' barbecue, man. I'd be looking for tacos and Indian food and stuff like that. So and I've had some really good Mexican and Indian food in the Bay Area too. So, and San Diego, I would assume. Well, I would assume your Mexican food landscape looks fantastic there. I could talk about food for. I could have a show about friggin' food. I can tell you that. We've got a fair number of good restaurants here in Columbus too, actually. Although the Flatiron, which I really liked at one point, apparently is a very different kind of restaurant now than it was last time I was there, which is too bad. But there's still plenty of good places. There's a number of good microbreweries here. So we're relatively fortunate, I think, in terms of food. We went to Smith and I got this job. We went to Smith and Walensky, I think after the paycheck came, because it cost like $300. But I think there may have been a couple cocktails too, not a lot, but it was like $300. The steak was like $75, and it was really good, but I don't know if it was worth $75. Favorite dinner is shepherd's pie. I can sympathize with that. I love shepherd's pie. In fact, my nose is stuffed up, so I can't tell whether my wife is downstairs cooking the shepherd's pie, which is really cottage pie. So, but it says shepherd's pie on the label. Famous reference to Yvette's brisket on The Wire. Okay, I've never watched The Wire. At some point I should, but I've never watched it. Atomic Buffalo Turds. That sounds like an adventure. Hissy Cat Studio, 24/7 Mexican joint in San Diego. Man, I love Mexican food. When I was working for Delphi, I spent 2 months in Mexico, like 4 hours in Saltillo, Mexico, right, which is closest to Monterrey, I guess. So way south of the border. And then I spent 2 weeks in Nuevo Laredo, which is right across the border, and which is, not that great of an area. But Saltillo was, it's different. There's some things there that are culture shocky to the, suburban white American kid. But boy, we ate good. So, I watched the first episode and didn't get any farther. I guess you got to watch about half of a season, and then it's like the most incredible thing you've ever watched. It is on my to-do list. But I have finished The Expanse, which was fantastic. This last season of The Expanse did feel a little compressed, but it wasn't like Game of Thrones compressed where everything is wrecked and feels totally unsatisfying because nothing was earned. They completely stuck the ending. It felt great. There's already talk about doing, take this for what it's worth, but there's talk about a movie or to cover the other 3 books. Doug Sunseth is no doubt talking about the Hatch green chilies. Those are really good. You can get those at Costco up here actually, and you just pile them on whatever. So those are really good. I don't like Tex-Mex as much. I prefer Mexican, but the food that we get here in Ohio in a Mexican restaurant, even when it's run by Mexicans, is quite different from the food we ate in Mexico, right? So. Roger, so it's funny that you should say that, actually. One thing that I did watch on HBO back in the day when it was being broadcast was Carnival. Man, that's a great series, actually. And it got cut short. They had like a 7-season plan, and it got 2 seasons. But nevertheless, you did get a sort of satisfying ending in season 2, so it was pretty good. Seasons 7 and 8 of Game of Thrones were where the magic ceased to happen. So... it was just here, this is my theory on Game of Thrones. It was like really good at one point through seasons 4, 5, 6, 3, 4, 5, 6. It was really good. By the time they started filming season 7, everybody that was on it was sick of it. They wanted it to be over, but it was such a huge moneymaker. Everybody was under contract, so they rushed it, and it completely felt flat. I don't actually have a problem with the ending as such. The problem is that they rushed the approach to the ending, and so it felt unearned. And that is essential problem with the end of Game of Thrones. And you could tell that everybody was sick of it and didn't care anymore, because they kept every Monday, it'd be like, oh, Game of Thrones last night, they had a Starbucks cup on the table when they were talking, and then they digitally edited out of the episodes. That was like happening on a regular basis. Oh, I loved Carnival. I thought it was a great show. I mean, you really had to kind of be prepared to deal with a very slow pace, especially in that first season. Yeah, Jeff Beeler says the company that owns The Expanse is pitching a series based on the last 3 books. Oh, man, I hope that happens, because I was just really, really pleased with that show. Really, really pleased with that show. Generally speaking, the HBO shows are all really good. Even the ones I don't like are like Sex and the City. That's not something I was into. But, you know, I sat through an episode of it and I was like, yeah, this is a really well done show. Not my thing. Not going to watch it again. Please don't force me to, wife. But, you know, it's a really well done show. A bunch of their other stuff is really well done. So generally speaking, they've had a lot more hits than misses. The True Detective is really good too. There was, you know, Mickey, it's funny you should mention Tolkien. You know, we're closing in on the end of the show here, so, and we'll talk about all the closing stuff when it comes up. But I actually, and I might do this in the second stream when the second stream launches, I actually want to do a stream on The Lord of the Rings in gaming. I can easily, I could spend an hour talking about the movies, right? Let alone the books, blah, 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 blah. So, I mean, I've read it multiple times. I've read the Silmarillion multiple times. I've got the entire History of Middle-earth series. I haven't read it all beginning to end, because that's not what you do with those. But I'm a huge Tolkien nerd, and will eventually have a thing on that. We might do that whenever the One Ring second edition shows up here, whenever they ship it. I don't know what's going on with that. So, it is very surreal. I mean, Carnival is it isn't Lynchian level surreal, but it is surreal. A lot of people liked Gotham too. I didn't. I watched a couple episodes of it and flatly did not like it. I'll be honest, if the One Ring second edition Kickstarter happened today, I probably wouldn't back it. I've played the game. It's really good. It's the best adaptation of the novels based on the limitations of the license that was available to them at the time in role-playing games. It's a really good adaptation. That said, I have an enormous fondness for the old Middle-earth stuff from Iron Crown, the MERP stuff, the Middle-earth role-playing. Middle-earth role-playing was a pretty bad fit mechanically, which is not true of the One Ring. One Ring does a lot to really make the mechanics evoke Middle-earth. It does a really good job at that. MERP was not that game, right? But despite that, you can look at those MERP supplements and say, man, these people really did understand Tolkien, and a lot of the stuff that's in here, even though they're writing it and they're making it up, is really a pretty logical and seamless expansion of what Tolkien would have done had he wrote those supplements. A lot of that was written by the late great Terry Amthor, who passed away late last year. I don't know what happened, but he wasn't that old. He was probably my age. Also, Terry was also responsible for Shadow World, which was the official Rolemaster setting for a while, and still maybe is. And there's kind of a lot of that stuff available on Drive-Thru RPG. I don't know what the long-term prognosis for Shadow World. I played the Middle-earth collectible card game that Iron Crown did, and I actually liked it. So, Station 11 on HBO. I'm hearing mixed things about that. Some people really like it, some people really don't. Is that political? Maybe. I don't know. Doug says that the Jackson adaptation was very pretty and mostly good. I don't mind the Faramir so much, because he ends up with Faramir in the same place at the end of that. I have bigger problems with the third film, where Jackson, there's like 4 iconic scenes in the third book, and Jackson leaves 2 out, bungles 1, but admittedly nails the 4th one. Those 4 scenes are Gandalf and the Witch King at the gates of Minas Tirith. Left out. It's in the extended version, but it's kind of crappy. Is left out. Eowyn and the Witch King at the Battle of the Pelennor Fields. Muffed. No impact whatsoever. Watch the Rankin Bass Return of the King, which nails it, and then go watch the Jackson version, and it's like not nearly as impactful. The armies of the West and the mouth of Sauron at the Black Gate, left out of the movie. Put into the extended versions, and it's not bad. The extended version of that is not bad. And then the 4th one that Jackson, and it is admittedly the most important one that Jackson absolutely does nail, is Frodo, Sam, and Gollum in the Cracks of Doom in the Sammath Naur. Where, I'm not going to spoil it for you if you haven't read the 80-year-old book, but so I was most dissatisfied with the 3rd film, much more so than with the 2nd film. So, and we can talk about all that. So that's the Holden Messerschmitt mentions the fighter pilot show. That's the Mighty Eighth, I think it's called. I think that's in production. So once it's like in production, it's almost certain to eventually appear. So the Mouth of Sauron, wasted opportunity. They got Bruce Spence to play the Mouth of Sauron, and you like see him for 2 seconds, and he's behind this huge prosthetic, and it's lame. It's bad. It's bad. John Longshore watched Battle of Britain. I've never seen that either. Is that the one with Richard Burton? Am I right about that? There's also, you can make fun of like the extended ending, and then another ending, and then another ending, and then another ending, and then shit, is it over? Is that another ending? And of the movie, but that was earned, right? Because you had been watching these movies for 3 years at this point. And I had probably seen Fellowship probably 15 times by the time we watched Return of the King. So in no sense did I mind any of that. I understand why they cut the Scouring of the Shire. I understand why they cut Tom Bombadil. I understand why they cut Glorfindel. I hope he shows up in the... So there's been a series of character posters released for the Amazon show. The Amazon show is now officially has a name. It's not just the mysterious Amazon Tolkien show. It is called The Rings of Power. And they've released a series of character posters that have like chest shots of the various characters that show armor and stuff like that. They look pretty cool. I have to admit that I'm intrigued. It might be a complete catastrophe, but it still looks pretty good. What I see so far for promotional material looks pretty good. Let me put it that way. In the sense that it is making me excited to see the show. And I think it's coming out in like September. I don't think I can do a Michael Caine impression. Maybe I can do this. There's 2 things in this world that I can't stand. People who are intolerant of other people's cultures, and the Dutch. It's about my Michael Caine impression, which is by far the funniest line in any of those movies, actually. Richard Burton was the RAF fighter pilot in The Longest Day, and that might be what I'm thinking of, actually. I think Nerd of the Rings is the video I watched on that, actually. That is a YouTube channel that basically does Lord of the Rings related content, and I won't say that I've seen every channel on YouTube like that, but Nerd of the Rings is my favorite channel like that. Yeah, Mo, you're right about that. That's it. Yeah, that's not really the Scouring of the Shire, though. That's just like a nod to the Scouring of the Shire that was left out. I understand why they cut it. You really can't put it in. Now, on the other hand, when Amazon paid $250 million to the Tolkien estate to get the rights to all this stuff, my fantasy was that they would actually redo the Lord of the Rings rather than on TV, where you could put that stuff in. You could put Galadriel giving the gifts to the Fellowship. You can show the whatever the Guardians were called, that Frodo gets past with the Phial of Galadriel, for example, which was left out of the movie. That's not a big deal scene, but it would have been cool to have it. You could put in Tom Bombadil, you could put in the Scaring the Shire and all that stuff. So that was kind of an idle notion. I actually wrote a series of blog posts, which I think never got mentioned, which were my outline of how such a series would proceed over several seasons. So David Harrison says there was a little Cary Grant by Michael Caine. That's very plausible. Michael Caine has had a very variable accent over the years too. I mean, sometimes now he just that's just his accent. But in previous years he had much more of a received pronunciation delivery. So, I mean, you can always listen to the BBC dramatization, which has Ian Holm as Frodo, Michael Hordern, I think, as Gandalf, and it's very good. I reread those books about every 2 years, to be honest. And about alternatingly, I kind of reread the Silmarillion every couple of years as well. So, The Rhinestone Cowboy. Is that the movie with Sylvester? So there's The Rhinestone Cowboy, which is the song. You're talking about the movie Rhinestone with Dolly Parton and Sylvester Stallone, which is a fucking terrible movie. Oh my God. Wow. Yeah, I mean, it's been 20 years since Lord of the Rings came out, though. That's the thing. So that seemed like that seemed to me like a possibility. On the other hand, I mean, there are so many aspects of those films that you absolutely are just definitive. Ian McKellen as Gandalf is masterful as Gandalf. Interestingly, he's way better, I think, as Gandalf the Grey than he is as Gandalf the White. But, that's just a kind of a feature of the story, too. So, I love the Silmarillion. The Silmarillion is my favorite thing that Tolkien wrote, actually, and not the Lord of the Rings, as much as I love the Lord of the Rings. I love the Silmarillion. But then again, I also like Lord Dunsany's Pagana stuff, which is very similar, which is, this sort of creation myth of this fantasy world thing. Obviously, we're talking about different movies then. Robert Redford. That does not ring a bell at all, but okay. Yeah, exactly. I mean, Marty, you've nailed it here. Is certainly the casting is absolutely impeccable, right? Every piece of casting, even the incidental bozos like Isildur and Gil-galad are like nailed in the movie. It's like you see Gil-galad for like a second and a half. And it doesn't matter because they got the perfect guy. He's a perfect Gil-galad. They got Elendil, the perfect guy. Isildur, the perfect person. The casting for Éowyn, as much as I don't like the scene with the Witch King, the casting is perfect. The casting is impeccable throughout the entire thing. And Tanner is right. What we might end up with is just something that we feel is an inferior copy of something that we already had. Well, you can't replace Christopher Lee, but you can't recast. You can't cast Christopher Lee anymore either because he's dead. But I think you could. I think there's other. You could find an alternative for Saruman, to be honest. And I love Christopher Lee. I mean, I loved even him in the many terrible movies he was in. So if you want to read the Silmarillion and are having problem with the very biblical section, skip the Valaquenta and the Einendale and go directly to the Quenta Silmarillion, which is where the story really starts. The rest is really prologue, and go from there, because there it becomes a little more narrative there and a little less King James Bible. Electric Horseman. Yeah, okay. That makes sense. I've heard of that. I've never watched that. Stallone as Frodo and Chuck Norris as Gandalf. Man, I'm tired of hearing about Chuck Norris. I gotta tell you. All right, we are over time here, folks. So let me mention, please do subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. We topped out this week at what looks like 123 or so, which is less than it's been lately, but it's a weird night and I had a weird topic. So please do subscribe to the channel. Please do thumbs up the video. If you're watching this after the fact, great. If you want to help support the channel, please check out the links in the video description. We have a show with Dan tomorrow night on the No Enemies Here channel. That is at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, where that is the Hookers and Blow show, where we will probably talk 5 minutes about gaming. We actually stuck to the topic the entire time last week. That's the first time that's ever happened. We hardly talked about Hookers and Blow at all. There'll be an unbox. I might have more videos too. I don't know. It depends what I get edited. But there will be a unboxing video on Thursday, which will be Combat Volume 2. Which, if you're into the Combat series, definitely looks like something you want, because it's a huge amount of additional stuff. Don't forget to check out. I said this already. The link's in the video description. So thanks everybody for watching. We will see you all next time. We will be back next week. Remember that next week is on Sunday at 8 p.m., which we might get 6 people. We'll see. But I'm still going to do it anyway because I am watching the Super Bowl. I don't care. Next week, Sunday at 8 p.m. And then the following week we'll be on the road, but we'll be back at the regular time on Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So thanks once again.